Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. Amber always knew how to make me feel like less of a man. And the worst part? She never even had to raise her voice to do it. It was in the way she rolled her eyes when I spoke, the way she brushed off my accomplishments like they were minor errands instead of the result of long hours and hard work. But tonight was different. Tonight, she went for the kill. We were at her parents' house, sitting around their oversized dining table, surrounded by the same faces I had smiled at for years. Her father, Richard, a retired corporate lawyer who still carried himself like he was preparing for closing arguments. Her mother, Sylvia, who had mastered the art of backhanded compliments and disapproving glances. And then there was Amber, my wife, my supposed partner, sitting across from me, laughing as she regaled them with a story at my expense. "I swear, sometimes I wonder how Matt survives without me," she said, shaking her head. "Last week, I asked him to handle dinner, and you know what he did? He ordered pizza, 3 large pizzas, as if we're feeding an entire football team." Her parents chuckled, and her sister, Lindsay, smirked. Classic, Lindsay muttered. I forced a smile, the kind of tight-lipped, practiced grin I had become too good at over the years. "I was just making sure there were leftovers," I said, trying to play along. Amber waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, please. You just didn't want to cook." More laughter. I gripped my fork, feeling the cold metal press into my palm. I had cooked plenty of times. I made breakfast every weekend, grilled steaks in the summer, and put together more last-minute meals than I could count. But Amber never mentioned those moments. No, the only stories she ever told about me were the ones where I looked incompetent. Her father turned to me, still chuckling. "Matt, you should have at least thrown together some pasta. That's what a real man does when he's in charge of the kitchen." I opened my mouth to respond, but Amber beat me to it. "Oh, Matt and cooking don't mix," she said, taking a sip of her wine. "He's much better at ordering takeout." I felt the room shift, all eyes landing on me with varying degrees of amusement and condescension. The joke had gone too far, but saying anything now would just make me look weak, like I couldn't take a little teasing. So I swallowed it down. The rest of the night passed in a blur of forced smiles and shallow conversation. I played my part, nodding at the right times, laughing when expected. But inside, something simmered. Later, as we drove home, Amber scrolled through her phone, completely unfazed. "You didn't have to do that," I said finally, my grip tightening on the wheel. She glanced up. "Do what?" "Make me look like a joke in front of your family." She sighed, exasperated. "Oh, come on, Matt. It was just a little fun. You take everything so personally." I clenched my jaw, maybe because it's always at my expense. She let out a dry laugh. "You're being ridiculous." I wanted to push it further, wanted to make her understand how much it stung, but I knew how this conversation would end. It always did. She would dismiss me, twist my words, make me feel like I was imagining things. So I let it drop. But as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling while Amber slept soundly beside me, I realized something. This wasn't normal. This wasn't how marriage was supposed to feel. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd been blind to something much worse. The laughter hit me first. Loud, easy, the kind that wraps around a room and makes everyone feel like they're part of something. Everyone except me. I stepped into the restaurant, scanning the crowded tables until I spotted Amber at the center of it all. She was leaning forward, her arms draped on the table, eyes bright with amusement as she told a story I already knew wouldn't end well for me. I forced a smile and made my way over, nodding at Jason and Mark, 2 of my oldest friends. Their wives, Emily and Vanessa, sat across from them, and then there was Amber, completely in her element, soaking up every ounce of attention. I barely had time to take my seat before she continued. "So there I am, standing in the kitchen, and Matt's just staring at the dishwasher like it's a bomb he has to defuse," she said, shaking her head. I swear, he looked at me and actually said, "Where do the plates go?" Laughter erupted around the table. My stomach tightened. Jason chuckled, nudging me. "Come on, man. Tell me that's not true." I picked up my drink, keeping my voice even. I was asking because she rearranges everything after I load it anyway. Thought I'd save myself the trouble. Amber rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. Don't act like you're some domestic genius now. More laughter. I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the burn settle. It was always like this. These nights out with friends, these casual get-togethers where Amber found a way to put me on display. She did it effortlessly, like a magician performing a well-rehearsed trick. A joke here, a story there, always highlighting something I had done wrong, something that made me look a little less competent, a little less manly. Emily, always the peacemaker, gave me a sympathetic smile. Well, at least he tries. Amber smirked. Oh, he tries. Bless his heart. I clenched my jaw. I should have let it go. That's what I always did. Let her have her fun. Let her get her laughs, then move on like it never happened. But tonight, something inside me refused to be ignored. Maybe it was the way Jason had looked at me with something close to pity. Maybe it was the fact that I had barely slept the night before, still replaying our argument after dinner at her parents' house. Or maybe I was just done. I set my drink down and leaned back in my chair, looking directly at Amber. You know, it's funny, I said, my voice calm. You always have a story about something stupid I did, but you never mention the things I don't screw up. The table went quiet. The shift was small, but I felt it. Amber's smile faltered for half a second before she tilted her head. Oh, come on, Matt. It's just a joke, right? I said, nodding. A joke. Like last week when I stayed up till 2 in the morning fixing the Wi-Fi because you had to stream your show before bed? Or how I handle every single bill so you don't have to think about it. How come those things never make it into your stories? Jason cleared his throat, looking between us. Vanessa shifted in her seat. Amber's face tightened, but she kept the smile in place. Wow, someone's sensitive tonight. I let out a short laugh. You know what? You're right. I guess I'm just too sensitive to enjoy being the butt of every joke. I picked up my drink, taking a slow sip before setting it down again. Or maybe, just maybe, I'm starting to wonder why my wife always feels the need to make me look like an idiot in front of everyone we know. The silence stretched. Amber's expression flickered, just for a second, before she quickly masked it with indifference. Matt, you're overreacting. I nodded slowly. That's another thing you like to say, isn't it? That I overreact. That I can't take a joke. That everything is in my head. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. But it's not, is it? You know exactly what you're doing. For the first time all night, Amber had nothing to say. Jason cleared his throat again. Hey, why don't we order? I am starving. The tension eased, conversation started up again, but something had shifted. The dynamic had cracked, just a little, and Amber knew it. She smiled through the rest of the night, but it was forced, her laughter a little too high, her comments a little too sharp. By the time we got to the car, she exploded. What the hell was that? She snapped, slamming the door behind her. I exhaled, gripping the wheel. That was me being tired of your games. She scoffed. Oh, don't even start. You made a scene, Matt. You embarrassed me in front of our friends. I turned to her, incredulous. You embarrassed me every chance you got tonight. I finally stood up for myself, and now I'm the bad guy. She crossed her arms, staring out the window. It was just jokes. I shook my head. No, Amber. Jokes are supposed to be funny. What you do, it's just tearing me down. She didn't respond. The drive home was quiet, the tension thick enough to choke on. When we pulled into the driveway, she got out without a word and slammed the door behind her. I sat there for a long time, staring at the house we had built together, the life we had shared. I had spent years making excuses for Amber, brushing off the little cuts, telling myself that this was just how she was. But tonight, I had seen it clearly. She wasn't just careless with her words. She enjoyed making me feel small. And for the first time, I wondered if this marriage wasn't just broken. Maybe it was already over. The house was empty when I got home from work. No sign of Amber, no note, no message. Not that she owed me one. She came and went as she pleased, living her life as if I was just a convenient roommate who happened to pay the bills. The silence didn't bother me anymore. In fact, I preferred it. It was easier than walking on eggshells, easier than pretending everything was fine. I tossed my keys on the counter and loosened my tie, heading to the bedroom to change. That's when I saw it. The small, black box sitting on her dresser, half hidden beneath a scarf. It wasn't there yesterday. Amber wasn't one for surprises, and I knew for a fact I hadn't bought her anything recently. My stomach tightened as I stepped closer, reaching for the box with fingers that already felt numb. I lifted the lid. Inside was an expensive-looking watch, sleek and modern, with a brand name I recognized immediately. It wasn't just expensive, it was luxury, the kind of gift you give to someone who means something to you. I turned it over, running my thumb along the smooth metal, until my heart nearly stopped. There was an engraving on the back. For my hero. The air left my lungs. My mind raced through every possible explanation, each one worse than the last. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stay calm. This didn't mean what I thought it did. It couldn't. But then why was my pulse pounding? I set the box down carefully, like it might explode in my hands. My instincts told me to wait, to gather more information before I did something reckless. I had ignored my gut for years, letting Amber chip away at my confidence, making me believe that every doubt, every concern, was just me being paranoid. Not this time. I needed proof. I moved quickly, searching through her drawers, her closet, even the nightstand. Nothing else seemed out of place. But when I checked the trash can in the bathroom, my breath caught in my throat. A receipt. I pulled it out, smoothing the crumpled paper. Luxury watch, purchased 3 days ago. Paid for with her personal credit card, the one she rarely used unless she wanted to hide something from me. My hands tightened around the receipt as my brain connected the dots. The sudden nights out, the dismissive attitude, the way she had been extra cautious with her phone lately, tilting it away whenever I was near. I wasn't imagining things. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as I stared at the evidence in my hands. My marriage wasn't just broken, it had been rotting from the inside out while I played the fool, thinking things could still be fixed. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. Amber was hiding something, but if I confronted her now, she'd twist it, gaslight me, make me the villain. No, I couldn't be impulsive. I needed to know the truth. I needed proof she couldn't deny. A plan started forming in my mind, cold and methodical. I grabbed my phone, searching for something I had never needed before, a GPS tracking app. It was easy to install. I'd add it to her car system while she was asleep. She would never even notice. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who would track his own wife. But then again, I never thought I'd be the kind of man whose wife made him feel like nothing. By the time Amber walked through the door later that night, my expression was carefully neutral. She barely glanced at me, heading straight for the kitchen, dumping her bag on the counter. Long day, I asked, keeping my voice casual. She sighed dramatically. Exhausting. I nodded, watching her as she pulled out her phone and tapped at the screen, her expression unreadable. Anything interesting happen? She barely looked up. Nope. Liar. I forced a smile and turned away, hiding the fire burning in my chest. This was it. The beginning of the end. I just didn't know how bad the truth was going to be. But soon I would. And when I did, Amber wouldn't see me coming. Amber was still asleep when I slipped out of bed. I moved carefully, not wanting to wake her, though she rarely stirred when I got up early. She slept deeply, like someone without a care in the world. It must have been nice, I thought bitterly, to live without the weight of guilt. I grabbed my phone and checked the app one had installed on her car's GPS system the night before. It was simple, just a small piece of software that let me see her location history. My heart pounded as the map loaded. A blinking dot appeared at our home address. Normal. But when I checked last night's logs, my stomach turned. She hadn't been at the gym like she said. She had driven across town, stopping for nearly 3 hours at an apartment complex I didn't recognize. I exhaled slowly, gripping the phone tighter. This was real. No more second-guessing myself. No more wondering if I was being paranoid. She was lying to me. I knew I should wait, gather more evidence, but the rage bubbling beneath my skin made it impossible. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to know who she was with. I dressed quickly and grabbed my keys, moving quietly as I stepped into the garage. Amber wouldn't wake for another hour at least. By then, I'd be back. The drive across town was a blur, my hands tightening on the wheel every time I imagined her with someone else. I pulled into the lot of the apartment complex, scanning the rows of cars. I didn't even know what I was looking for until I saw it. A bright red truck, parked near the entrance. The kind of truck that belonged to someone who liked to be noticed. A firefighter's decal on the back window. My pulse pounded. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. A firefighter. That explained the engraving on the watch. For my hero. I had heard Amber mention a firefighter charity event a few weeks ago, something about a bachelor auction for fundraising. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now, I realized that was when it had started. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think. I couldn't just storm in there and start throwing accusations. I needed undeniable proof. Proof that would destroy any chance of her twisting the truth. I checked my phone again, this time searching for security camera rentals. It was easier than I expected. A discreet, motion-activated camera, small enough to be hidden in her car. I ordered it for same-day pickup. By the time I got home, Amber was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like nothing had changed. She barely glanced up as I walked in. "Morning," she said casually. I studied her, searching for any flicker of guilt. "Nothing." "Morning," I replied, setting my keys on the counter. "What's the plan for today?" She shrugged, scrolling through her phone. "Just running errands. Maybe meeting Lindsay for lunch." "Lies." I nodded, pretending to believe her, pretending everything was normal. But inside, I was already picturing how this would play out. By tonight, I would have my proof. And by the end of the week, Amber's world would come crashing down. I sat in my car, parked a block away from the apartment complex, watching the glowing dot on my phone screen. Amber's car was right where I expected it to be, outside the same building as last night. She had left the house an hour ago, giving me the usual excuse. Meeting Lindsay for lunch. Won't be long. Lindsay was on vacation. I had checked. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles aching from how tightly I was holding on. Every instinct screamed at me to walk up those stairs, pound on the door, and demand to know what kind of man thought he could sleep with another man's wife. But I wasn't here for a confrontation. Not yet. I was here for proof. The small security camera I had placed in Amber's car was already recording. By tonight, I would have video evidence of her stepping out of this place, smug and satisfied, after spending time with a man who wasn't her husband. She wouldn't be able to deny it. I forced myself to breathe evenly, to think. The apartment door finally swung open, and my stomach twisted. Amber stepped out, adjusting her hair, smoothing down her dress. The way she moved, the way she carried herself, it was all too familiar. I had seen her fix herself up like that 100 times before. Only this time, it wasn't for me. A second later, a man followed her out. Tall, muscular, confident. The red-shirt firefighter I had seen in pictures from the charity event. He leaned casually against the doorframe, watching her with an easy smile, like he didn't have a care in the world. Like he hadn't just spent the last hour betraying another man. Amber laughed at something he said, then reached out and touched his arm. My stomach churned. I wanted to be sick. I snapped a few photos, making sure to capture the way she stood too close, the way she looked up at him with the kind of admiration she hadn't given me in years. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. She wasn't just cruel. She was a liar, a cheat, and she had thrown everything we had away for this. I exhaled slowly, my breath shaky but controlled. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scream. No, Amber didn't deserve the satisfaction of thinking she had gotten to me. She deserved ruin. I checked my phone, scrolling through the email chain from the charity event. That billboard space they had auctioned off. It was still available for sponsorship. By the end of the day, it would be mine. And by tomorrow morning, Amber's perfect little world would collapse in the most public, humiliating way possible. Amber strolled through the front door just after 6, tossing her purse on the counter like it weighed 100 pounds. She stretched, let out an exaggerated sigh, then turned to me with a casual smile, as if she hadn't just spent her afternoon with another man. "Long day," she said, running a hand through her hair. I looked up from my laptop, forcing my expression to remain neutral. "Yeah? How was lunch with Lindsay?" Amber hesitated. It was quick, barely noticeable, but I caught it. A flicker of something in her eyes. "Oh, you know how she is." We talked about her new apartment, gossiped a little. The usual. I nodded slowly, pretending to believe her. "Sounds nice." She walked past me, heading toward the kitchen. "I hope you didn't just sit around all day. You should have gone to the gym or something." I clenched my jaw. The dig was so casual, so natural, like second nature to her. I had spent my afternoon orchestrating her downfall. But to Amber, I was still just the man she could belittle without consequence. Not for much longer. I closed my laptop, standing up. I actually got something done today. Amber barely glanced at me as she poured herself a glass of wine. Oh yeah? What's that? I took my time answering, watching her sip from the glass like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she wasn't living on borrowed time. I bought something. She turned, raising an eyebrow. Bought what? I let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. A billboard. Amber blinked. A what? I leaned against the counter, watching her reaction closely. You know the charity auction from last month? The one where you were volunteering? They had a prime advertising spot up for sale. Big digital billboard downtown. I made a winning bid. She let out a short laugh, confused. Why the hell would you do that? I smiled, slow and measured. Because I had something important to share with the world. Her laughter faded. Something in my tone must have set off alarm bells because she straightened, suddenly more alert. What are you talking about, Matt? I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The live feed loaded instantly. A massive digital billboard shining brightly in the middle of downtown, displaying a crystal-clear image. Amber. Amber and the firefighter. Amber, caught in the act, stepping out of his apartment, laughing, her hand on his arm like they were something real. And below it, the message I had carefully crafted. Congratulations to my wife, Amber, winning bids and losing husbands since 2024. Amber's face drained of color. She stepped forward, staring at the screen like she could will it into something else, something less damning. What is this? She whispered. I tucked my phone away. It's a message. To you. To everyone. Her breath hitched, her hands gripping the counter. Matt, you need to take that down. Right now. I chuckled, shaking my head. Why? Feeling exposed? Humiliated? I stepped closer, my voice dropping. That's funny. That's exactly how I felt watching you sneak around like a coward. Amber's chest rose and fell quickly, panic setting in. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I cut in, my voice cold. You lied. You cheated. And you thought you could keep walking all over me like I was nothing. I leaned in slightly, watching her squirm. You were wrong. Her breath was shaky, her hands trembling. You're ruining my life. I let out a low, humorless laugh. No, Amber. You ruined your life. I just made sure everyone got a front row seat to watch. She grabbed her phone, her fingers fumbling as she dialed a number. I didn't have to guess who she was calling. You think he's going to help you? I asked, watching her press the phone to her ear. He's probably trying to save his own job right now. Do you know how bad it looks for a firefighter to be publicly exposed for sleeping with another man's wife? Bad press, bad image. If he has half a brain, he's already cutting ties with you. Amber swallowed hard, stepping away as the call went to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. I smirked. Guess he's not answering, huh? She spun on me, eyes blazing. You're a monster. I tilted my head. No, Amber. I just finally stopped being your doormat. She paced the kitchen, her breathing uneven. I can fix this, she muttered to herself, her mind already scrambling for a way out. You need to leave. Her head snapped up. What? I gestured toward the door. Pack your things. Get out. Amber shook her head rapidly. No, Matt, listen. I messed up, okay? I stopped. I held up a hand, cutting her off. You don't get to talk your way out of this. Not this time. She took a step closer, her voice desperate now. I was lonely. You were always working. I needed attention. I let out a slow breath. I was working. For us. While you were out buying private dinners and sneaking into another man's apartment. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I grabbed my keys, walking past her. You have until tomorrow to get your stuff out of here. After that, I don't care where you go. She let out a small, choked sound. Where are you going? I smirked. Somewhere that doesn't have you in it. And with that, I walked out the door, leaving Amber standing in the ruins of the life she had destroyed. I had barely slept, not because I was second-guessing myself, not because I missed her, but because I was waiting for the next move. Amber wasn't the type to just accept defeat. She would claw, scratch, and manipulate her way into whatever outcome best suited her. That was the way she operated. When I pulled into the driveway the next morning, I half expected to see her car gone, her things packed. Instead, she was standing on the front porch, arms crossed, waiting for me like she had rehearsed exactly what she was going to say. "You humiliated me," she spat as soon as I stepped out of the car. I locked the door and walked past her without a word, unlocking the front door. She followed me inside, slamming it shut behind her. "You think you can just destroy my life and walk away?" Her voice was shaking, not with sadness, but with rage. I turned, setting my keys on the counter. "I didn't destroy your life, Amber. You did that all on your own." Her nostrils flared. "You don't get to play the victim here, Matt. You were never here. You were always working, always on your damn phone, acting like your job was more important than me." I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "So let me get this straight. You were lonely, so instead of talking to me, instead of saying anything, you went out and bid on a firefighter like you were shopping for a new husband? That's what you're going with." She ran a hand through her hair, pacing. "It wasn't like that." I grabbed the folder sitting on the kitchen table and tossed it toward her. "No." Then explained the hotel charges, the dinner reservations, the fact that you paid for his watch with your personal credit card so I wouldn't see it. Amber's face paled, but she recovered quickly, arms crossing over her chest again. "You were supposed to trust me." I took a slow step forward, voice dangerously calm. "Trust you?" I let out a breath, shaking my head. "Amber, I did trust you. I trusted you so much that I ignored every red flag, every sign that something was off. And you took advantage of that." Her lip trembled, but it wasn't sadness. It was frustration. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. "You put up that billboard," she said quietly, almost to herself. "You wanted to ruin me." I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of it all settle in my chest. "No, Amber. I wanted you to feel what I felt. I wanted you to understand what it's like to have your world ripped apart in public, to be treated like a joke." I met her gaze cold and steady. "You wanted attention? Now you have it." Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "People are laughing at me, Matt. Everywhere you go. My friends, my family." I cut her off. "They're not laughing at you, Amber. They're seeing you, the real you. And I don't like what they see." She inhaled sharply, blinking hard like she was trying to hold back tears. But I wasn't buying it. Not this time. After a long pause, she straightened her shoulders. "Fine," she said, voice stiff. "You want a divorce? You'll regret it." I smirked. "I doubt it." She turned on her heel, storming up the stairs. I heard drawers slamming, bags being yanked off hangers. I stood in the living room, listening to the sound of my marriage being packed into suitcases. Amber was gone by the time I woke up the next morning. No dramatic exit, no last-minute pleas for me to reconsider, just an empty closet and a faint trace of her perfume lingering in the air. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, my bedroom now, taking in the sight of her absence. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. I had already scheduled a locksmith to change the locks later that afternoon. The divorce paperwork was ready to go. There was no point in dragging this out. She had made her choices, and I had finally made mine. The silence in the house felt different now. Before, it had been heavy, filled with the weight of all the things left unsaid. Now it felt like freedom. I spent the next few days throwing myself into work, setting up meetings, catching up on projects I'd been too distracted to focus on. I wasn't just trying to stay busy, I was rebuilding. Piece by piece, I was taking back the life I had let Amber steal from me. Jason was the first to notice the change. We met up for drinks one night, something I hadn't done in months, maybe longer. He had me over his beer, smirking. "You look different," he said, taking a sip. I raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged. "I don't know, man. You're just lighter. Like you finally took off a weighted vest you didn't even know you were wearing." I thought about that for a moment, letting his words sink in. He wasn't wrong. I guess I did, I admitted. He clinked his bottle against mine. "Good. Took you long enough." The truth was, I had spent years making excuses for Amber, convincing myself that the way she treated me was just a rough patch, something that would eventually get better. But now, looking back, I saw it for what it was: control, manipulation, disrespect. And I was done with it. The fallout from the billboard had been brutal for Amber. Word spread fast, and her carefully crafted image had crumbled overnight. The firefighter she had risked everything for? He had been suspended from his job, pending an internal investigation. Last I heard, he was trying to keep a low profile, hoping the media frenzy would die down. Amber, on the other hand, had been calling me nonstop. I ignored every message. She was desperate, trying to salvage whatever dignity she had left. But there was nothing left to save. One evening, as I was clearing out the last remnants of her from the house, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. "Matt?" Amber's voice came through the line, quiet, almost pleading. I closed my eyes, exhaling through my nose. "What do you want, Amber?" She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. I need to talk to you." I leaned against the counter, rubbing a hand over my face. "We have nothing to talk about." "Please," she pushed. "I messed up. I know that. But you don't have to hate me." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Hate you? Amber, I don't even think about you anymore." She sucked in a sharp breath, and for the first time, I heard it, realization. She had lost me, not just as a husband, but as someone who had ever cared. "You destroyed me," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, Amber. You did that all by yourself." I hung up, blocking the number. And just like that, I was free. It had been months since I had last seen Amber, and life had never been better. The divorce was finalized, the house was mine, and I had cut every remaining tie that bound me to her. It was strange at first, waking up without the constant weight of her presence, without the quiet resentment simmering beneath the surface of every interaction. But as the days passed, I realized how much lighter I felt, how much more I could breathe. I threw myself into work, rebuilding the focus and drive that had once made me one of the best in my field. Without Amber's constant criticisms and manipulations, I had clarity. I invested smarter, took bolder risks, and in return, my career thrived. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was excelling. But while I was moving forward, Amber was unraveling. The fallout from her affair had been worse than even I anticipated. The firefighter, Ryan, as I had come to learn, had been forced to resign from his position after the department deemed his actions detrimental to their public image. His once spotless reputation had been dragged through the mud, and the attention he had enjoyed from Amber turned to dust the moment he realized she wasn't worth the trouble. He had cut her off completely, leaving her to deal with the humiliation on her own. Amber's social life crumbled. The same people she once flaunted in front of me, the same friends who had laughed at her little jokes at my expense, had distanced themselves. No one wanted to be associated with the woman whose face had been plastered on a billboard as a public disgrace. One afternoon, Jason sent me a link to a local gossip page. Amber had been spotted arguing with her landlord outside a rundown apartment complex. Apparently, she had been struggling to keep up with rent. Karma works fast. Jason had texted along with it. I stared at the image for a moment, at the woman who had once looked down on me, who had called me weak, unambitious, boring. Now, she was the one scrambling, desperate to hold onto the life she had so carelessly thrown away. But the funny thing was, I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity either. I felt nothing. Amber had made her choices, and I had made mine. And mine had led me here, successful, free, and finally at peace with myself. I turned off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time in years, I was truly happy. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.